Hello and welcome to today's demonstration, a classic hair up using a free ponytail technique. We will be uploading this video to our YouTube channel and also our Instagram TV. I've prepared my mannequin, as you can see here, already with the free ponytails in place. I'm going to be talking to you about the sectioning that I've taken and also my technique to secure the ponytails. I'm then going to create a really classic style that's very easy to do. Perfect for learners that will maybe be preparing for an EPA endpoint assessment, or maybe a trade test for a new job in salon, or for an assessment whether in your salon or also here at Michael John Training School. Okay, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the tools and equipment that I've actually got. I'm going to be working with some hairspray. I've got the Velvet Silk hairspray here. I've also got a dressing brush. I'm using a board dressing brush, Kent one with a sectioning tool on the end. I've got some sectioning clips. Now I'm working with some flat sectioning clips. I'm just going to bring them close to the screen. You can see these are really great for hair up because they don't cause any sectioning marks. So I've already got this section already clipped up here, but as you can see, it won't cause any sectioning marks onto the hair, so I can work quite freely with those. I have a tail comb. I'm also going to be using a toothbrush, which is a little bit unconventional, but I'm going to be showing you how I use this to actually smooth those little fine hairs. You could also use like a mascara brush as well, but a little bit of an unconventional item there. I've got some extra sectioning clips if I need them, just at any time. I've got some brown wavy grips, all prepared, ready for me to use, and again, matching the hair colour that we're working with today. And we've also got some elastic bands. So that's everything prepared. I've prepared my trolley ready for the service, and I've made sure that it's clean and tidy and also that it's been disinfected and sterilised thoroughly. I'm going to start by talking to you a little bit about the sectioning pattern that I've taken in order to create the free ponytails. Now, I particularly love this hair up because it's really simple to do. It's very easy, but it's really effective. So if you're wanting to sort of work on maybe a party kind of look or even a bridal hair up, it could work for both, because all it simply is free ponytails, and then what you do with these ponytails afterwards is completely up to you. I have prepared the hair, I've blow dried and straightened it, and we're working with quite a sort of a long mannequin here. I've started by taking the top section. The top section actually starts at the low crown and works diagonally forward to just in front of the ear, either side. I like to work this section diagonally across because it allows me to have enough hair for the second section. If you work straight across behind the ear, you'll find that your top ponytail is much thicker than the two underneath. So just by working diagonally across, diagonally forward, I allow more hair to be included in this second ponytail here. So we've got a little bit of more evenness of thickness between each ponytail. I've taken zigzag sections, so I'm just going to show you these. They are slightly hidden because I've sort of masked them a little bit. I'm just going to sort of reveal that. You can see sort of a zigzag effect working through here. By working this zigzag through, it actually allows the one section to blend into the other a little bit more clearly, a little bit more visually blended rather than a straight line. We don't necessarily want those straight lines appearing through these sections here. You can actually see it more on my second ponytail. You can see that's the zigzag parting there, and it'll just help to blend these two sections when it comes to working at the side a little bit more effectively. So my banding technique, I just used classic rubber bands. I didn't necessarily use anything too sort of intricate. I combed the hair using a tail comb in this instance. Hair that is very smooth and very fine in nature, I tend to work with a comb. Hair that is very coarse and thick in nature, I'd work with a brush. I just find that utilising different tools for different hair types works quite well. And when I'm working with finer and smoother hair, I find I get a lot more control using a comb. But hair that is thicker and more coarser needs the brush, because I probably need a little bit more of a detangling kind of tool rather than a sort of management tool. I've started by taking the first ponytail. I worked with one single band. I combed the hair and I placed a band onto it. And then I placed two separate bands underneath that. This enabled me to get a much stronger and firmer ponytail, so it's quite firm and quite tight to the scalp, so you'll find that it actually will sit quite nicely, ready for us to wrap the hair around this elastic band, covering it, and then we can start to create our hair up technique. So that's the first ponytail. I then worked down to the second ponytail, and then finally the third ponytail, which you can see located here at the just below the occipital bow. Now these two ponytails at the back, I've already wrapped hair round, and I'm going to demonstrate how to do that on the on the top ponytail in just a few minutes. But you can see here, as I bring closer to the screen, I've already just wrapped a little bit of hair and I've popped a pin in. Now you can see this pin's been placed down, it's located here. I will be covering this later using a little bit of the hair as we place the hair up pin. Your main goal when working with pins, of course, is to disguise them. We want the pins to almost be invisible, like you cannot see them at the end. So you want to take that into consideration from the first point that you actually start placing pins within the hair, to make sure that they are concealed as much as is possible. Okay, so I'm going to start by working with this top ponytail here. I've got a rubber bands in place, and what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to hide the rubber bands just by taking a little bit of hair, and just only a small amount because the bands are quite thin. I don't necessarily need too much. And you're not really going to see this too much, but I just really want to make sure that you're not going to see the rubber bands at all. And whenever I'm taking sections, I'm always making just a little bit of time just to comb them through. I'm now going to take this hair and I'm going to wrap it around the base of the ponytail. So I'm going to start to wrap around the base just to hide that section. And as I do, I want to make sure, I'm just going to move my tripod slightly at this stage. I really want to make sure that I'm actually securing that nice and tight and also as smooth as possible, just to make sure that we are working with a nice smooth section. And I'm just going to work that through all the way around until I feel happy. I don't tend to wrap all the way to the very end. I do like to leave quite a little bit at the back and underneath, just to work like an anchor. I find if you wrap it too much and you've got a very fine little piece to pin in, you may find that it may get quite loose at certain points, so you'll just need to bear that in mind. So as you can see, I've wrapped that through. If you do find that you've got some stray hair, you can just work with a little bit of your hairspray. I'm just going to spray a little bit of that on, and then with my finger and thumb, I'm just going to press that round. So what I've done here is I've just pressed the hair into place. I'm just going to do that once more. So I'm just spraying that spray down, and I'm now going to press my thumb along the section, as we can see here, so just along, and then that will give me a much more smoother base. You can use a hairdryer as well, actually. I have actually done that on a much larger ponytail, a single, what I would call a runway pony. I would actually dry that in using hairspray. I'm going to take my pen, and with my nail, I'm just going to open it. You must make sure that you never use your teeth or your mouth at all for any service in hairdressing. If you want to use a watch or a piece of jewellery, please feel free to do so, as long as it's been cleansed and sterilised, and just make sure that it doesn't cause any abrasions to any expensive jewellery. But I tend to use just my nail, and you just need to nick it really, so your nails don't need to be too long. With the actual pin now open, I'm just going to go inside the rubber band. So I'm going to go up, and then I'm going to turn, and then I'm going to press down. Now just by turning on a slight angle, I secure that in much more tighter. If I was to go straight up, it would peek out through the top, and we wouldn't necessarily want that. But by going in slightly, turning my angle and then pushing it down, I actually give it a much more stronger base to hold on to. I'm just going to do a little zoom so we can see I've got that nice little up to there. And that's the little long piece, but again, I'll incorporate that into these hair up sections. Okay, so now we've got our 3 ponytails, and we have concealed the sections as much as possible, and also the rubber bands. Now, it's up to you really what you then do from this point, because technically from an endpoint assessment perspective, 100% of the hair is now up. So if you want to style these ponytails down, that's entirely up to you. One of the looks you could actually create would be almost like a runway sort of pony look, where you could backcomb these sections quite high on the top crown, and then have these quite long to sort of give this very dramatic ponytail appearance. This would be sort of more like an edgy, contemporary kind of look. I'm going to go for something personally quite classic today, but other options, you could curl them, you could do dino braids, so by actually working with different kinds of bands and interlock them. You could braid them, you could add hair pieces and create a very long, very avant-garde kind of image. You could work with coloured hair, coloured bands, also that would be another option. You wouldn't even have to conceal them if you worked with different colours of bands, because that would add to the overall style and the overall finish of what you've created. But what I'm going to do today is I'm going to do something very classic, very chic, and I'm actually going to place each ponytail into a bow. So I'm going to work with 3 bows working down the head. I'm going to raise the mannequin slightly just so you can see a little bit more. Here we go. Sorry guys, I'm just organising my camera. Here we go. That's great. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the top ponytail and then I'm going to work down. So I'm just going to give that a little comb through. And these little short hairs that are bobbing out, I'm just going to pop a little bit of spray on those just to keep them. I like to manage them as I'm working through. Now you can do all the flyaway ends at the very end, but I like to manage them as I'm going along because I find that it helps me get to where I want to be in terms of creating that beautiful smooth look that I actually want the bows to be. I'm just going to move my trolley slightly just as I come round to the opposite side. Now what I want to do here is I want to split this ponytail into 3 sections, and how I do that is using the pintail of my comb. I'm actually going to go down, I'm going to create a V. So I go down, I then turn it, and I then pop up. And this is just going to take off the very top part of the section. So it's going to leave me with 2 sections. So this little section here is going to be the center part of the bow. So I'm just going to divide that slightly because I don't want this to be too thick either. I just wanted it to be a V-like section that dips slightly into this top ponytail, but only really takes off the top part because we don't need these to be too sort of thick. I'm going to place this over the front, and again using one of my section clips with the flat plastic back, which won't cause any sectioning marks on any area. I'm just going to place that in the front section here. Now for the purposes of the demonstration, I have allowed the hair to fall over the face, but usually I would place another clip here to make sure that it's not in the client's face, just to ensure that they're comfortable throughout the service. Again, I'm going to comb the hair once more. So there's a lot of combing because I'm creating a very smooth, very classic, very elegant look today. I'm just going to go in again and I'm just going to manage my flyaways. So I like to manage them as I go. And again, you can use the can just a little bit, just to do a little bit of smoothing on this section. And then I'm going to divide this into 2. I'm going to divide this evenly. So we want it as even as possible. So I'm just going to measure them and just look as I split them. And I really want them to be as even as possible. I'm going to go a little bit quicker on the bottom 2. But I just really want to show you this in as much detail as I possibly can. Now I'm going to begin by working the first part of the bow. So I'm just going to again comb the hair. I'm going to manage my flyaways. Now with mannequins you will get a lot of flyaways. You shouldn't get as many really with a client's hair, but it really depends on their growth cycle and also if they've got any damage to their hair. So I'm just working with this really nice smooth section, and I want it to be as smooth as possible because I want the bows to be as smooth as possible. Evenness of the bows is really important to add, so you need to make sure they're even on both sides. I'm going to spray a little bit more hairspray just through this bottom section now, just to actually make it a little bit more solid, and then just with my 2 fingers I'm actually just going to run it through, and what that's actually done, it makes it that little bit more solid, which allows me to wrap it more easy. Now I'm actually going to take this and with 2 fingers I'm going to wrap the underneath sections, quite flat wrap, like so, and then I can then work to create this very flat barreled effect until I feel happy that I've created this bow-like shape. And I'm just taking a few moments just to really make sure that I'm happy with that, and I am. I can see this already bow-like shape appearing through. I'll show you a different visual of that in just a few moments time. I'm going to take 1 pin and I'm going to place it underneath. and I'm going to take another pin and I'm going to place it underneath. I'm just taking a few moments now to assess the balance of the pin. That's great, and we can see there already it's sort of in place. That's the little top part of the bow. And again, it's very simple hair rope. I am going quite slow now because I just want to sort of give you that step-by-step instructional of how I would secure it in place. I'm working quite delicately with the pins. And then again, manage my flyaways. So I'm always concentrating on the actual refinement stage, even at these beginning parts of the hair up. And I'm just really working through just to sort of working with the spray. I always like to make sure it's a dry mist, so there's at least 30 centimeters distance at all times between the can and the hair that I'm spraying. This allows me to really create what I'm actually looking for. And I'm very happy with that. It's quite spherical, it's quite round shape. But of course, if you want bows that may be more angular, then that's what you'll want to create. But ultimately what you want to do is create the evenness from one side of the bow to the other side, which is, I feel, is probably the most challenging part of this hair up. So I'm going to do it by working quite visually. So I need to keep my eye on this side as well as this side. So I'm going to start by repeating the exact same process over to this side now. So I'm taking the hair and I'm, again, managing those flyaways. The can is always a great tool to actually smooth the hair because sometimes your fingers can get quite sticky and they can actually stop you from achieving what you want to achieve. And I'm just working down through that section there, and the same again, 2 fingers will actually just make that a little bit more solid. And I'm just going to wrap that away in a flat wrap manner, and then I'm going to start to measure my bows. I've just kicked the tripod, which didn't help. So I'm just going to do that once more. Now don't worry if you have to do it a couple of times, because it's really about the balance that you actually want to create here. So if you feel like you need to do it a couple of times to get that right, then feel free. And take your time and try not to get stressed. Now I'm just going to move the mannequin. I'm actually using the camera today like my mirror. So we'd always want to be very visually keeping our minds, of what the client will see. So already I know that the client will see these top 2 bows. So it's really important to make sure that we do have that evenness between them. And I'm just using you as my mirror. And again, this sort of really addresses the importance of using your mirror. It's not just for the client. It's for you as well. So, okay, here we go. I'm just sort of working through, keeping that nice and neat, and I'm happy with that for today. And I'm just going to place the pin down onto the hair. And I always quite delicately place it in, and then I can take my fingers out. Some of the back section fell out then. Don't worry, I managed to catch it in time. And then I've got my second pin, and then that just... You could lock these if you wish, but I'm not going to do that in this instance. I don't necessarily feel like this would... I would probably lock the pins together, and by lock them, what we mean is when you cross pins. So I'm just going to show you that now. It would be where one pin would go in that way and one pin would go in that way, and you would lock them inside the bow. This would really ensure that it would definitely not move. I would possibly do that maybe on a wedding, if this was a bridesmaid and it was like 7 AM in the morning and it needs to last until a certain time at night, because I just want to be I wouldn't want to be spending the rest of my day worrying that the bridesmaid's hair up is going to fall out. So maybe that's when you probably would maybe consider locking your pins into place. Again, I'm managing my flyaways. As you can see, I'm just spraying hair very lightly. It's a very light dry mist through the hair. And I'm now just taking a visual from the top to look at the bows, and I'm really happy with the evenness of each bow as we're working through the actual look. That's great. Okay, I'm going to turn the mannequin completely round now to show you the actual back visual that we've created here. And as you can see, these are the bows. These are the first two bows. And I'm just going to take this one, I'm going to stretch it slightly just to match that one. There we go, that's much more even. Now I am a perfectionist, I'm probably sure you can already see that by now. So again, you do have to sort of say to yourself, okay, that's enough. So there's the first bows. Now you can see we've got this top section to still go over, so I'm just going to take out the sectioning clip from the front very delicately. And this section will now place over, and it will almost act like the center part of the bow here. How I'm going to do this is I'm going to allow it to fall. I'm just going to comb the hair into place, again managing those flyaways as I'm working through, and I'm going to place a rubber band approximately into where I want to pin the section. So I'm going to measure this. I'm going to use 2 rubber bands. Now I'm working with 2 because these rubber bands that I'm working with are very, very soft. So if you've got slightly firmer rubber bands, you may not need to always use 2 like I am doing. And you can see I'm just placing the rubber band into this section as shown, and making sure that's really smooth for the hair that's in this section here. So I'm just going to comb this, just a little bit of surface combing. It's just the very tips of the tail comb. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to push that using a pin into there. So I'm going to do that now. Here's the pin. I'm going to hook onto the band and then push it into place. You may need to maneuver slightly just to show that you can actually get to where you need to be. I'm just going to put my foot on the tripod. It's just giving me some resistance. I'm talking to myself now. Here we go. I'm going to move that slightly there. And there we have it. That's the first bow. And these would almost act like the ribbons. So this section here, I'm going to split into 2. And I'm going to drape them over the sides. And they do that, and this is where I'm going to link the bows together. So that's how the bows are going to link. I'm just going to comb those. I don't have to worry about those too much. A little bit of hairspray. And I'm going to do the next 2 bows more quickly, more like what I would call a commercial time. This is a very commercial hair up. I would probably only allow about 30 to 40 minutes for this. So I wouldn't necessarily worry too much about the amount of time that you're spending on it. It definitely is something that you'll be able to do in salon quite quickly. And the more you do it, the more you practice it, the better you'll become. So if it's coming to sort of towards that endpoint assessment criteria, I really would recommend practice, 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 and then practice even more. And you can use your mannequins for this, especially at this time, because it's November 2020. I don't know when everyone's going to be watching this, but we are currently in the second UK lockdown right now. So we're only working on mannequins. I'm doing the exact same process, working through, as you can see. I've just taken a little V section out of this top. I'm just going to place this over the front, and again, using these sectioning clips, the special sectioning clips with the flat plastic back, that won't cause any creasing to the hair. You can also use a piece of tissue or also a playing card, actually works quite well. But again, make sure it's been sterilised and disinfected. I'm splitting the sections down. Now these lower sections, of course, are going to be slightly thinner, just by nature of the actual hair up. But don't worry, the bows actually look very pretty. Large are going to slightly smaller. I think it adds like a really sort of interesting asymmetry to it. I'm just going to actually take out a little bit more of this central panel because I only need a little bit just to work as this sort of central section through here. I'm just going to take my clip again. place that into the hair, and then I'm going to work down. I'm going to spray the hair and then I'm going to split it. Again, it's all about managing those flyaways. So I'm just going to manage the flyaways down, and then I'm just going to comb. And now what I'm going to do with this section here is I'm going to back comb. Now, back combing is one of the criteria that you do need to perform when undertaking an endpoint assessment. So that is just quite sort of important to add at this stage. I feel like you do need to obviously make sure that you are meeting all the criteria. So we want to see some element of back combing in there. So I'm going to take this section and I'm going to back comb from the underneath. So I'm actually just going to work through, and I'm actually going to spray, and I'm going to actually press down, and then I'm going to look through here. See, lifting up this section, it's nice and smooth on the underneath, but the back combing is actually going to work underneath the section. And then I'm just back combing, just very, very slightly. And then I'm just going to fan this section out a little bit more. And then I'm going to wrap that through there. And then that's going to create the second bow. I'm just going to spray down, again, using that same section as before. I'm going to work through. I'm going to wrap, wrap, and wrap. And then I'm working through. And then I'm just going to smooth this section over and then pin it in place. And again, a little bit of a smaller bow this time. And when you're actually adding back combing into a hair up, we're fundamentally doing that for structure, volume, and movement. But you also need to make sure that you can't see it. So again, much like the pins, it needs to be completely invisible. So I'm just placing it through into there, and then that's secured the pin in place. I'm going to fan these out a little bit more at the end. And just that little bit more spray working down there. And then I'm just sort of spraying it down. And then I'm going to go straight through to the other side. And you can fan them out a little bit as well. So I'm going straight through to the other side. I'm taking the hair that's from the ribbon side of the top bow. And again, working with my special sectioning clips, I'm just going to place this into the front. And again, these sectioning clips will ensure that I actually don't cause any sectioning marks to the hair. Manage my flyaways through here. And then I'm just going to back comb this section through. And then work down to smooth the top, because sometimes the back combing can appear through the other side. And then wrap. So I'll just wrap through the bottom, and then pin up to the top. And again, we're going to be looking for symmetry of this section. I'm actually just going to take out some of this extra back combing here. Sorry, a little bit too much. Only a little bit is needed, really. 1, 2, 3. And again, don't be afraid to do this a couple of times. Like, if you don't get it right the first time, don't worry, because it's all about the evenness of the bows. Even if you have to do it 3 or 4 times, I really wouldn't be too concerned about that. And then I'm just working through, pinning down into the section. And then I'm going to fan the bow out. You can see second bow now in place. I'm going to have to do a little bit of work on this one just to make sure it's a little bit neater. I lost a section there, but I'm just going to put an extra pin through. And the only thing is with fine hair, your pins will show just that little bit more, but don't worry, you'll be able to disguise them at the end. I'm going to take that section now and I'm going to create the centre part, and then I'm going to work through to create the other bow very, very quickly. So this is the second bow now, almost finished. Just combing that hair. I'm going to place my rubber band into place. I'm working with 2 bands each section because I'm working with very, very, very sort of soft bands in this hair up. I'm actually working through. I'm working through here, and that's going to make it nice and neat, and I'm just going to assess to see how that's going to look. That's going to look very pretty. And the rubber bands actually just sort of work a bit like a support. If I was to just pin this in place, it wouldn't give it the sort of structure that I feel like this final element really gives it. So again, I'm just going to hook into the band before I begin to find an anchor for the pin. I've not really found it yet. Don't be afraid to sort of fiddle slightly until you find your right anchor. That's fine. I'm going to fan that out a little bit more there, and a little bit more here. That's great. Now I'm just going to manage my flyaways. You can see a common theme always sort of concentrating on the final result as I'm actually working through the hair up, because I find that this sort of helps. I find it actually helps save time a little bit if I actually focus a little bit on the sort of final result at the very end. I mean, sorry, throughout the sections. But of course, we will always spend that extra last 5 minutes polishing hair up. What's the saying? What's it say? 20%. The last 20% of the work is 80% of the final result. I think that's what they say. I don't know if I've got that right actually. And then I'm just splitting these again. These will all join into one another at the end. I'm just going to take out my section and clip from this front panel. I'm just going to clip that up there. And again, I'm just going to join this into here. There we go. And then the final one. So I'm going to do this quite quickly. Well, as quickly as I usually go. If you know my work, I'm not the quickest hairdresser in the world. I like to take my time. So, but we're all different. We're all different. I'm actually working with a really thin sort of panel on this side here. I'm just going to pop that over there. I'm just going to work this, split this into 2 as evenly as I can get it. Just making sure you guys can see. That's great. Lovely. A little bit of hairspray. Only needs a tiny bit because it's a smaller section. I'm going to lift this up a little bit of back combing, just quite gently. Again, I did put a little bit too much in the sort of second ribbons. I had to sort of take a little bit of that out. So try and make sure you don't put too much in. And I'm just going to wrap. I always wrap around 2 fingers. I find that gives me sort of the nice width that I'm always looking for. And I'm just going to place my tail comb down, open my pin, and then pin into place. She's moving, the mannequin is moving. I didn't want her to do that. All right. To secure my mannequin. Excuse me. There we go. Manage the flyaways again. I'm just sort of working on that refinement as we're working through the hair up. You will always get an element of flyaways though with a mannequin. Remember, mannequin hair, you know, it's real hair. This is a human hair, but it's obviously hair that really just didn't really make the grade for extensions. So it's obviously of a slightly lesser quality, and it's obviously as well had several chemical treatments to it. So of course we're going to get some breakage and some flyaways, but I always think that's quite good to practice on because of course we get clients like that, you know, not everybody's got perfect hair. I'm just going to work through to finish my last section now, and then we're going to dress out the final parts of the hair up. So So I'm going to just smooth this section down a little bit more. I'm going to turn the mannequin all the way around so I can work on the underneath. And again, wrap this section through. And then I'm just barrel rolling it into where I want it to be. And I'm just going to place 2 pins into place. Put my pin. Insert it. I'm going to turn it round now so you can see. This is the final bow. I'm just going to work now to secure that last section. I'm going to put 2 pins in this side because I found it was a little bit delicate. I just wanted to work with something a little bit more stronger. And I'm just fanning the bows slightly. And again, I've got a little bit of flyaway just here at this top section. Try not to worry, I'm just going to sort of press that down onto the section just to give it that smoother appearance, and then fan it out a little bit more. I'm just talking as I'm just sort of taking you through my process here, really. I can take these side clips out now. And on this side as well. I'm just going to place a band now into this. I'm just going to work with 1 band actually on this section because it's quite small. The bows get slightly smaller as you work towards the neck. And again, approximate time that I would allow for this is about 45 minutes. So, and again, I'm just going to see how that's going to work through there. Take a pin and pin it in. Smooth that section down here. And then we have the final bow. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give you a quick close-up. That's what we've created, the 3 bows. So it's sort of very elegant. Great for a bridesmaid, but really great for sort of an endpoint assessment because I think it's got a little bit of drama to it, but it's also got that classic chic look. Now, I'm actually going to utilise these ribbon, I always call these like the ribbons of the bow, the bit that would stick down, the bit that would hang down, sorry, and I'm just going to comb these very gently. And I'm just going to fan them into the centre section to make them nice, to sort of hide any pins in this area. I'm going to take this one here. It's got stuck slightly on a section, so I'll just delicately remove it. I'm going to fan that into place. And by fanning it into sort of this centre panel here, I sort of cover any areas that I might want to conceal. I might have some pins, some areas that don't look so attractive. But you could add flowers. This would look really beautiful, or diamantes, or jewellery, beading, lots of different things. I'm now going to place a rubber band on the centre bottom section here, which will incorporate all the ribbons together. So quite delicately, and it works to sort of wrap the sides. Again, I'm just working with one band now because I don't want something too firm at this stage, because I'm going to sort of tease the hair a little bit once I've placed it into a band. So I do want that flexibility at this stage. I'm just going to push that underneath, right underneath the bottom bow so you can't see it. And then I can just sort of manoeuvre these sections a little bit more now with a bit more control.